Welcome to the world of scary stories. Here you'll learn about Spanish scary stories in English. You can also choose the story you want from the descriptions using timestamps and titles. Subscribe, like, and share your creepiest stories in the comments. I look forward to seeing you all. Get your ears ready. Get comfortable, turn off the lights, and let yourself be immersed in what awaits you. These are Spanish scary bedtime stories. Let's begin. First story. I worked in a funeral home. If you think working in this field is scary, a funeral home that handles bodies every day, let me tell you this. They are absolutely right. I want to tell you, this is what I encountered when I worked at ONA. I was in charge of carrying out transfers. I meant collecting bodies from homes, hospitals, or wherever needed, and delivering them to where they are needed. Preparation. Over time, you get used to a lot of things, to loneliness, to the silence, long and cold weather, an early morning drive, with a body behind you. After picking up the body of a gentleman who died a natural death, inside the house, there was silence. It falls. They signed it. We packed it. I climbed on the stretcher and walked back to the funeral home. It was about 2 a.m. Driving. It's a bad time, because everything is so too quiet. The engine, only the sounds of the night. I remember very well that I was arriving. The traffic light was flashing red, but since the cars were approaching, I had to brake. And then, right there, I heard a sound. Back, a sharp movement, as if something would slide, as if something heavy. She would barely turn. Of course, at first I thought that it was perfectly logical. Perhaps the bag simply wasn't the right size, adjusted, or the one she moved. Even though I always hugged her tightly, I forced myself to think so. But then he heard another quiet sound, but very distinct, as if inside. The bag had probably been adjusted a little. Then I got out. I opened the back door, with great care, illuminating it with the light from my cell phone. The black bag was different, tense, the height of the chest, like a corpse. He was moving his arms, as if I would change my position. My heart jumped in my throat, but I thought I had to check it. It was my responsibility, so I quickly unzipped the bag, waiting for some mistake to be found. And no, there was no mistake. The man was dead, completely dead. Dead, marbled skin, a frozen blueness on his back, pupils without reflexes, but his eyes were open, and his hand. She held her right hand to his chest, where the heart is, and the index finger was extended, as if he were pointing at something, as if he made this movement seconds before I arrived. I myself arranged the weapon for him. Straight sides inside the bag. It was absolutely impossible for the hands to be like this, especially since it moved when the car stopped. I closed the bag as quickly as I could. I got back behind the wheel without looking back. I didn't say anything at the funeral home. I didn't want them to think he was being influenced by suggestion. If you have this, then you can't be afraid. Work. From then on, she always did that. A short silent prayer for each body that needed to be moved. And thank God, never again experienced something like this. None of the dead moved again. Second story. The Avandaro Sect. My wife gave me permission to tell this story, as long as it didn't mention names or exact locations. I can only say that it happened when she was a child in the house that her grandparents lived in on the outskirts of Abandoned, a small tourist town near Valle de Bravo, in the state of Mexico. To give you an idea, I think it was around where that vacation was filmed. Horror. I didn't know that house. She says so. It was old. Many years ago. Thick walls, high ceilings, and a patio. A huge backlot full of trees, where there was always shade, even if it was midday. Her parents came often. They were very close to her grandparents, and whenever they had the chance, they would escape there to relax. She has many warm memories of that place. Walks to the lake, cold nights, the smell of burnt wood, eggs in the patio with his cousins. Nothing strange was happening. Nothing that would raise any eyebrows. Signs of what happened at that time. It all started with an accident. His father I was driving to Hidalgo with a friend to solve a work problem, and there was a pretty big accident on the highway. Strong. It wasn't fatal, but it was enough that her mother should get out immediately. See it. It all happened so fast that there wasn't enough time. It's time to plan who will stay with you. Her. A neighbor offered to take her with her. Grandparents in the house. I knew that too. Meanwhile they said, and that her mother didn't know if everything was okay. I would have solved it overnight. or if they agreed. A few days left. He says it was a gray day, like rain, although it wasn't raining, and that the way seemed strange, unpleasant. She didn't know why. Maybe because it was the first time she left without her parents. Sometimes because the neighbor, although nice, she was too quiet. Maybe because he didn't do it at the time. They talked about how serious it was. But still I knew my father was sick. When they arrived at their grandparents' house, it was already getting dark, and from the moment they crossed the threshold, she felt out of place. Her grandparents, they came out to greet her, but not like before, always, but not with the enthusiasm they always showed. No, they left, tense and frowning, as if surprised by her appearance, and not because they liked her. The neighbor told me about the accident, and that her mother had to leave instantly, but they didn't ask about my father, or about, man, I don't even know if they were okay. The only thing is, they said, you shouldn't have brought her in like that. Let us know in advance. My wife, who was still a child, didn't do this. He didn't understand anything. He thought they were scolding her, which might have been her. I felt guilty, but didn't know how to. That his father had been in a car accident. However, it seemed like they were upset with her. The neighbor left very quickly, and her grandparents told her it was for the best. She needed to rest, because she had a long day. Very busy, but my wife remembers very well that she didn't do that. It was a gentle tone, as if they wanted to get her out of the way, as if it would bother them. They sent her to bed very early. They gave him almost nothing for dinner. By 8 o'clock I was already in the room, where she always slept with her parents. But this at night I would spend time there alone. Grandma brought her tea, so she could relax. It tasted very bitter. She drank tea to sleep, but she didn't want to. Questioned him. He drank a little, and stayed fast asleep. A heavy, strange dream, as if they would be torn from the world. He doesn't know how much time has passed since it happened. He woke up. A sound. He doesn't know if it was a knock, or something else. She whispered his name, but something distracted her. That deep sleep. He opened his eyes, and the room was inside. Gloom, lit only by the light of a corridor that seeped underground. A door. He quickly looked around the room, searching for something. He heard a voice, and saw something. He thought it was a child, sitting on the corner. A small, hunched form. But when he heard the voice, he realized it was not a child. The voice was strange, as if it was trying to change something. An attempt to imitate a human voice without success. She quickly stood up, and the number also grew. And then, he saw everything clearly. Not at all like a child. It was a tall, very tall, naked figure that had a body, arms, shoulders, forearms, a torso. But the head was of a goat, a large goat with short hair, very open eyes, and he was breathing. What scared him most was the breathing itself. The figure raised its hand, as if to sign. It told him, wake up, and somehow, that's where it opened. Eyes. It was as if he had woken up from a new dream, and was lying in bed again. Only this time the door to the room was ajar, and he remembered perfectly well that his grandparents, they locked it from the outside. Someone opened it, and just as he turned to the door, he saw something tall coming out of the room. Not at all like his grandparents, who were very small and moved slowly, floating or crawling. She couldn't see its face, but she was sure of it. It was the same figure she had just seen in her dream. Only now it was completely convinced that what she had seen was reality, and he heard something moving towards him. Garden. She, without understanding why, went to the window. I didn't want to look, but at the same time, I had long felt the need to look outside, and what she saw left her speechless. There were several people in the courtyard. No, he was able to determine exactly how many there were, but there were at least 6 or 7 of them. The leg forms a circle. They had red capes. It stood out even in the dark, and even despite the multi-layered clothing, it was noticeable that her legs and parts of her torso, they were bare. A few candles lit the courtyard. Barely, but it was enough for her. I saw shadows, bodies, steam, from the cold, emanating from his breath. I could hardly hear, but there was. It sounded like an irregular, low singing. They were not words, or at least not words, that she knew. She felt something inside herself. It was terribly cold. She covered her mouth with her hand to keep quiet. Noise. She drew the curtains and hid under the covers. He himself doesn't know how, but he managed to go back to sleep. The next day, his grandparents performed, as if nothing had happened. As always, they made breakfast, talked to him, and, darling, they asked her if she slept. They answered, well, as if they heard nothing, nothing, as if they were never there. There. They died many years later. This never happened. Strange rumors about them. Never. He didn't mention anything about any strange groups, rituals, cults, nothing. The only thing that aroused curiosity was that the house. They inherited the property from the couple next door, and from no one else. Family. This topic was discussed for several months, but then they let it go. They treated it with respect. Your decision. My wife never returned to Bandaro. No, he wants it. This happens for a reason. He was there, and never told his mother or his dad saw what he saw. But there's something else, a reason why he told me this whole story. Sometimes he still dreams that he's in that place, that room, in that house, leaning out the window, the figures of that cult. They stand there, as if waiting for her. Go and join them, waiting for him to wake up.
Third story. The Curse. Hello Ariel, how are you? Hello community. I've been looking forward to connecting with them to be able to tell my story. Well, the reality is that this is a story that my parents, but I witnessed each of them, of the events that took place. I'll tell you, my name is Johanna. I live in Chile, and I grew up in a small town. In the city, this place is called Raco, of Curacao. It happened around 2000, after I separated from my husband and I returned to my parents' house, along with my 1-year-old daughter. It should be mentioned that my father was in shape, and was always very attractive. This inflamed passions, women of the city, and perhaps that was the reason for everything that started afterwards. My mother had been ill for some time, visiting different doctors, then different treatments, but they never found the cause of their problems. One day, when he still had his last strength, there were still clothes left. My mother wanted to sort them, to feel useful. When she opened the drawer where she kept, she found clothes she wore less often, and a small black velvet handbag. She called it attention to what she took out, and just natural curiosity opened it. Inside, he found a very gloomy country, as if it was wet, but it was not. At that moment, my family was in the house. Mom, my dad, and my little daughter. Me. I was at work. The next day, all three woke up, very ill, each with their own pathology. Different, but so strong that none of them could get out of bed that morning. I felt the need to ask for days off. I'm taking time off from work to pay attention to them. Given the situation, my older brother will come to visit us, and my mother, even though she was very ill, she told him about it, about the small black velvet handbag. My brother has always been a very religious person, and very respectful of the issues discussed, witchcraft, evil, and everything connected with it. My skepticism up to this point had been high. So he took a small bag, she very carefully threw the gloves inside a plastic bag, and he went to the house of the woman who he always came to when I had problems. Strange. My brother says that, upon arrival, without he said anything to her, the woman who was Patricia called. She said, "My son, you are carrying something vile. You are carrying the plague, is bringing me something very bad." My brother handed her a small bag, and he told her everything, to which the woman replied, "This is cemetery territory, and it's good that whoever put this sign in his house is inexperienced and doesn't know how to do wrong." Completed. It was not properly created, otherwise his mother will no longer be on this plane. Mrs. Patricia invited my friends to her home. Parents, when they managed to feel at least a little better, they visited her. She told them to light candles, say a few prayers, and perform certain actions, rituals, besides the fact that she would start working from home. And that's what they did. I remember the last thing my father did. It was intended to transport the remains of one of the candles, throw them on a dirt road, and go without looking back. After that, Mrs. Patricia told us that the person who was the criminal was a young woman who I wanted to get rid of my mother.
My father was supposed to look after him, but this work was interrupted in time. Thanks to her, the rituals that my parents followed the instructions exactly. Until that moment, I was still somehow holding on, distrustful. About a month passed. The situation gradually improved, and the atmosphere in the room improved. The house became brighter. But suddenly they started dying. The chickens that my parents had. One for each day. Now I believe a little more that I was passing by and looked in on this woman. Patricia asked him what the passage was. My dear, evil falls upon the most defenseless, the weakest members of the family. In this case, we are talking about animals and birds that they have. Luckily, there are several of them. So, your daughter is also protected, he told me. He also added, when someone does evil, it is witchcraft, or it is a spell, and everything returns to normal. This person will get what he deserves. The last sentence seemed overplayed, exaggerated, even funny to me. It was like a movie. So I did nothing. Comment. As she said, the chickens kept dying one after another, until we finished the 22 we had. As for the person who wanted to do this to him, we wondered a lot about what could harm my mother. Sometimes, we analyzed glances, trying to identify the culprit. It could be anyone, because many family friends came home, neighbors, acquaintances, etc. But my mother had doubts about one of them. In particular, the neighbor's daughter, Rocio. I found it incredible, because she was very young, maybe 17 years old. Time passed, about 6 months, if that's acceptable. I don't remember. Rocio stopped visiting our house, and now he almost never said hello to anyone from the family, if we had met there by chance. But still, therefore, I could not understand that she was the culprit. It so happened that in the first few days of December, Rocio got engaged to a young guy. In my country, it's called putting on illusions, which is a step before marriage, when a couple begins to wear a very thin ring on the ring finger of the right hand, with what everyone knows, those who are committed to their cause. They dated for a short time, but the relationship developed very quickly. A few days later, on December 25th, we received shocking news that still surprises me. Rocio's boyfriend died. He went to bed on Christmas Eve, and never went to bed again. The more she woke up, still panicked, still in shock. I talked to Mrs. Patricia. I told them that my daughter is still little. Italeo, a very close person to you, who tried to sow evil in your home. But don't worry. With this fact, the evil was returned to its original position, and the cycle has ended. Every time I think about everything that happened, I remember it seems so unreal to me, that if I didn't survive, it would be very difficult. Believe me, I've always had these doubts. Was it really the return of evil, or was it just a coincidence? Thank you for reading my story. Perhaps, has anyone else experienced something similar? If so, I would really like to know. Fourth story. A creepy adventure with Alexa, early in the morning. Hello Ariel, my name is Violetta Sanchez, and I already posted this story in the Night Stories group on Facebook. I even left a video in the comments, which proves what I'm about to tell you. I'd love to hear you narrate my story. Podcast experience. On October 31, 2022, I attended a Halloween party at the home of two friends who were roommate at the time. The place was small, and the party, it was set to music, and each of them, I can ask Alexa to play anything. I wanted to hear it. After a few drinks and a few hours of dancing, most of the guests left, even my friends who lived in this apartment. We went to bed, each in their own room. I was left alone with two friends, and a small dog, House, who was lying in his bed. It was approximately 3 hours 30 minutes a.m. in the morning, when the puppy woke up. Because he was very mischievous, he thought that he wanted to go play, but he became very nervous, and even cried. The music we were listening to, distorted. A friend asked for a different song. Alexa took it. The order was placed but never delivered. Play this. There was a very high-pitched buzzing sound. Each of us tried to ask for it. A different song, but it was always like that. The same. We tried to ignore it, and move on with our lives, enjoying the night, but the buzzing did not stop, until it started to multiply. A very creepy song, similar to circus music. We were silent. The little dog was barking so loudly, that I thought he was about to wake up, my friends. The circus music abruptly stopped. Alexa's colors changed to red. For example, when there is a connection failure. Internet. Sounds began to come from the speakers. The heart-rending screams of a woman. It seemed as if she was locked in, and that I was trying to get out. Besides these terrible screams, we managed to hear the voices of different people. It was impossible to make out what they were saying, but no. These were pleasant sounds. We were terrified. We started hugging each other to try to console ourselves. Alexa, be quiet, we begged. Alexa, please stop. Sorry, there seems to be a problem with your internet connection at the moment. He answered us, continuing to scream. They continued playing. One of my friends plucked up the courage. Get up and unplug it. The screams finally stopped. We, still shaking, no longer understood what was happening. We were looking for some explanation. Of course, we came to this conclusion. The owners of the apartment had made a very tactless joke, which invited us to stay for That's all. We even went to look for them. Their bedrooms. But both were quite asleep. When the first of them woke up, confused, he asked us if we were something is going on. We'll tell you what's going on. We just heard it, and it went like this. We'll go into the room to talk more. Calm down. He showed us his phone and the app. It said Alexa was out of money. Connected since 3 hours 30 minutes a.m. After that, there were no recordings. Nothing. This was not in the history. Dark circus music. Especially, no woman's screams. No voices. He asked us to reconnect, to signal to see if she had returned the sign. And as soon as we did, without asking for anything, we heard a woman's voice. It was her again. This time she spoke to us in a more indistinct tone, as if whispering to us. We immediately unplugged it again. Did you hear that? We told him. Now we do. You believe me. Until then, as he told us, they had already had this. For several days, they listened to different things in the department early in the morning. They heard furniture being moved, or they heard things being thrown around the kitchen. Every night, a small dog began barking into nowhere. That's why they decided to install a small security camera in the room. He asked us if we wanted to see a recording of what had just happened to us. We told him, terrified, that it was better this way. We'd see her in the morning. We went to bed in his room, and the next day they released the video. Security. Indeed, everything was recorded. The circus music, the woman's screams, the laughter with which she taunted us. So far, we still haven't found him. An explanation of what happened that night. We understand even less why they, a little dog, so cheerful and mischievous, she started crying. Or why did she do that? I was very uncomfortable even before that. The screams of that woman were heard. I did my own research, and found that in this area of the Dajid, so, in Mexico City, during the 1985 earthquake, they fell. Several buildings. They left behind many people, died under the rubble. Many of their relatives still have nothing. Find the bodies of their missing. All this has given us a lot to think about. However, I am no longer looking for a suitable option for him. An explanation of what happened. Simple and clear. Happened. Whatever is trying to scare us, it is still going on. Wandering around this colony, and I hope I find peace very soon. What he needs, until my friends return. To connect your Alexa. Thank you so much, community, for listening to me. I wish you a good night.